The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome back to the Star Sport podcast. I'm your host Dylan Mangan, joined today by the returning Matthew Hurley. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose Credit Union, choose local, choose community. On today's podcast, we'll be chatting about a big weekend of football action at both a county and local level, as there are plenty of winners and losers in West Cork clubs in both county and local championships as well. First though, we have a special interview to bring you with double Olympic gold medalist Paul O'Donovan, who was awarded a West Cork Sports Star of the Month award recently at the Celtic Ross Hotel. Star Sport editor Kieran McCarthy was there to present the award and spoke to O'Donovan about why he loves West Cork, what the local recognition means to him, and how 2024 hasn't been a bad year for him overall.
So Paul, congratulations on your latest West Cork Sports Star Monthly Award. You've won 9 monthly awards now, 3 overall awards. You're the most successful athlete in the history of these awards. But these awards mean so much to you. Can you talk to me something about your relationship with these awards and why they do mean so much?
They're very special awards for me, and I think all the people that come from West Cork, because I suppose the way it starts when we were growing up, that we'd see in the papers and hear on the radio. For us it was drawing, so the likes of Tim Harnedy and Eugene Coakley won several awards, and the overall award on at least 2 occasions anyway, I think. And then, when we were in our younger days, we were winning some of the monthly awards once or twice, and we're very happy about it. And then, over the years, we've won the overall one. I think myself and Gary won it, and me and Finton have won it. And always what's really cool about it is when they bring everyone back at the end of the year to announce the overall winner, they have just people from all different sports, from people all across West Cork. And that's kind of the most important thing. I'd love everyone to be rowers, but that's not going to happen. And it's just great to see people trying so many different sports and really excelling at them. We had Olympians from West Cork across several sports, and not just at the Olympics. We've got good football players, soccer players, rugby players, and so on as well. It's just it's madness, like how good West Cork is at that kind of stuff.
You've always enjoyed, obviously, you're from the Sheen, rode Skibbereen, you put West Cork on the map, but you always love coming back here to West Cork. I remember years ago after yourself and Gary won the silver, I'm not sure which of you said it, but it was the closer you got to home, the less people cared about seeing the medal, the more they cared about seeing you. It's very much that community that surrounds you, like it takes a village to raise an Olympian. So you've had incredible support here in West Cork.
I think the best of support. We wouldn't get it anywhere else. And what's really good about it is, like we see in the rowing club, like from the founding members, through to like my dad, taking us rowing and teaching us how to row, and then there's Dominic Casey, and now there's some other people involved, Denise Walsh, kind of head coach there and stuff, that they always just try and keep the concepts simple, and try and keep making progress. But I suppose obviously they're trying to get as much success as they can, but trying to teach the kids just good lessons about hard work, employing themselves, being open to making mistakes, and then kind of correcting them and improving them, and always looking to get better. And if people can take that to as many aspects of their lives as they can, then they're going to be, I think, just really good people in general, which is probably the most important thing that sport can do for a person. It's not about how many medals or what success you had. It's the friends you made, the journeys you've had, and the life lessons, and bringing them all then together for the other parts of your life too.
You spoke about that before, Paul. I remember reading an interview with you, and you said like the joy you get from winning a medal, it kind of sustains you for only a certain amount of time, but it's that day-to-day enjoyment you get out of rowing, the training. That's where you really get your kind of your joy from rowing, is it?
I think so, yeah. Because you spend more than 99% of your time not racing. So if you didn't enjoy just the side of it with all the training and the miles and in the gym and on the water when it's cold and windy and stuff, you'd be in for a pretty miserable life if it was only kind of rowing and or doing the racing was what you enjoyed. And even at that, like the success is not that great, like, because see, over our lifetimes, if we look at the races we've entered compared to those we've won, we've lost an awful lot more. So I think that's kind of what I enjoy about it anyway, is just the general like day-to-day stuff that you're always kind of working on and things like that.
And did that enjoyment didn't come at the start when yourself and Gary and Diarmuid and Shane were racing on the island stuff when you were kids started off, or when your dad Teddy was teaching you? Do you think that that's where the enjoyment came from the very start? Like the enjoyment you got when you got into both the first day to where you are now, is it the same? Is it comparable? Is it still as much fun? I think
it's still as much fun. Geez, we had some great times back then actually, and even still now they're very good. But always. I mean, like when we started off, like Dad was like, set some big goals or try to go to the Olympics or whatever, and we'd be like, yeah, we'll do that. But then, like, we were always just racing one another, and Dad was kind of good then to, get us to race. It would have been like John Welly and Kenny McCarthy, the guys that were kind of on the fringes of the senior team, and the odd time that Eugene Coakley or Richard Coakley or Tim Harnedy were down. Dad would kind of say to them, get the lads involved there, like race them and stuff. And there was like 4 of us against kind of them in their singles. And that was like what we were excited about. And they'd only be down on the weekends because they'd be in college or working or training with the national team during the week. And we'd just be kind of so excited and motivated all week just to try and get better and do the little things there and racing each other during the week. And then we'd come together on the weekends and race some of the older guys. And every week we were getting a little bit closer. And then eventually we'd pass them when the 4 of us were in the boat, and we'd go into double sculls then and race them. And it was just always that kind of day-to-day stuff, week to week, that kind of kept us motivated to do the training and all that we were doing.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Welcome back to the Star Sport podcast. Like I said at the top of the podcast, lots of football to get through, and no better man to take us through the main talking points than Matthew Hurley. So let's start, Matthew, with the county championships, and we'll go to Premier Senior first. Probably the place to start is in Group 2, which had Castlehaven, of course, Clonakilty and Carbery Rangers. I'll read out just the final table for those who don't know how things ended up there. So Castlehaven directly into the semi-final. They won all 3 of their games and finished on 6 points. Clonakilty have made it out of the group with 3 points. They had a better points difference than St. Michael's, they were a point ahead of St. Michael's, who finished on 2 points. And Carbery Rangers are into a relegation playoff, having finished with 1 point there. So big games at the weekend, Matthew. The big one was Haven and Ross. Haven beating Ross there and kind of consigning them to a relegation playoff.
Yeah, I suppose, Dylan, it was a comprehensive kind of win for Castlehaven, even though the scoreline didn't necessarily suggest that. It was kind of like in the second half, Castlehaven kind of took their foot off the accelerator, they let aside and just eased their way into the semi-final after that. Unfortunately for Ross, it does mean a relegation playoff now against Éire Óg, and they're going to be very much under pressure in that. Éire Óg obviously losing the Ballincollig this weekend as well. It's going to be a difficult game for Ross to survive in the Premier Senior Championship, but it was always going to be an uphill task against a very good Castlehaven side. Obviously, in the first 2 rounds, a lot of people were saying that they were the top dogs in Cork, well clear of the rest, even St. Finbarrs and Nima Rangers. They got the job done at the weekend, but now they go into a semi-final, which you could argue it is kind of a tricky assignment for many sides when you think about it, going straight through to a semi-final without playing a competitive game in a quarter-final. And look at the draw as well. They'll probably play St. Finbarrs at the semi-final, provided St. Finbarrs beat Ballincollig, of course, in the quarter-final. So that's kind of a really, really big game between the Haven and the Bars. Obviously, the rivalry there is intense. And there will be that's the only question mark about Johnny Callahan's team. Are they prepared enough to go into a battle against a very good St. Finbarrs team if it comes to fruition, whereas the Bars have a game in the quarterfinal to get ready for that? That'll be a big chance for Castlehaven, I'm sure, but they are still one of the favourites for the Cork Championship and deservedly beat Carbery Rangers on Sunday. But for Carbery Rangers, big game now looms against Éire Óg. It's going to be a massive game in Bandon in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, lots of people have Haven down as their favourites to win the county this year. So it remains to be seen whether that kind of break up until the semi-final does them good. There's arguments for and against, I suppose, isn't there? Like the rest will do them well. Maybe if a dual club would prefer the rest than a club that focus on football, but remains to be seen. The Carbery, the Ross relegation playoff, that takes place on the 29th of September. So that's a Sunday against Éire Óg, like you said there. Elsewhere in that group, Clonakilty obviously beat St. Michael's at the weekend 218 to 1-6. So a really good win there for Clon, and that sets them up really nicely ahead of their quarterfinal. They have a tough task against Nemo, but they'll be carrying a bit of momentum into that game.
It's a massive win for Clonakilty, to be fair to them, because it was a potential banana skin against a Michael's team that are decent enough in Premier Senior, not the best, but not the worst either. They are a sticky enough opponent, and Clonakilty put them away to the sword literally straight away. Like at half time, the game was over. So really, really good result for Clonakilty in this one. Darragh Goss scoring 1-5 and Conor Daly with 7 points. Exceptional display by both of those guys. And bit of a stat as well. They scored 2 goals and 18 points. That's the highest they've ever scored the championship since 2006, when they put 315 on Carbery Rangers in 2006. But coincidentally, that year, obviously, Clonakilty played Nima Rangers in the quarterfinal this year. In that year, they played Nima Rangers in the quarterfinal and in Bandon as well, and they lost by 5 points. So if the omens are to be believed in a bit, Clonakilty could be in a bit of trouble, but a bit of positivity for Clonakilty. Like, they are the third most lethal attack in the Premier Senior Championship, only behind Castlehaven and St. Finbarr. So that's a magnificent achievement for Clonakilty, and they've shown this year that they have a lot of great attacking players. Like, Clonakilty usually would have been more of a defensive and conservative team, as shown last season. They had 6 points apiece draw, obviously, with Carbery Rangers last year. Lost 5 points to 4 against Nima Rangers, but this year they're scoring a bucket load of points. Obviously 218 against Michaels, a decent enough score against Carbery Rangers as well. 112 against Castlehaven, which is a 15-point margin. That's a high enough score against a very good side like Castlehaven. So, and with Darragh Goff, Conor Daly up there, Ross Mannix is doing well up front as well. And the lads in the defence are doing well, like Thomas Clancy and Mar Shanley. I think Clon could definitely go into the Nemo game fancying their chances. I think, like, you look at their attack at the moment, it is firing, and that is a positive for Clonakilty going forward into the quarterfinal, which is live on TG Carr, the Clon and Nemo game. So maybe a game for West Cork fanatics to watch on TG Carr in 2 weeks' time as well.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. You mentioned their attack going really, really strong. Nemo have one of the best defences in the Premier Senior this year. So I think they've conceded 29 points. Castlehaven have 29 as well. And Ballincollig have the best defence with 26 points conceded. But so it might be an unstoppable force against an immovable object there. We'll see how that one goes. Like you said, it's on TG Carr. That's down for Sunday the 29th as well at 2:15. So that's a weekend to look forward to in the in Premier Senior for those clubs. Just elsewhere as well, in Group 1, Newcestown were back in Premier Senior this year after their county win last year. They haven't been relegated. They haven't gotten out of the group. So it's probably a positive season for them, safe in the grade again for next year. They'll be happy with that, I presume.
I think they'd be delighted, considering it is Jimmy O'Sullivan's first year in charge, and I think it's a very good achievement for Newcestown to stay up. Obviously, when they got the win against Air Oak the first day early doors, that was probably a positive for Newcestown to take into the rest of the championship, to be fair to them. The game against Ballincollig, I would say in round 2, kind of cost them the knockout stage berth, if that makes sense. Like, it was a tight, intense game in round 2, definitely, but Newcestown just fell just short in that game. Nemo was always going to be an uphill task. Like, Nemo are the aristocrats of Gaelic football in Cork. They are a very good side. They have some very good young players and some very good old ones as well. They're experienced. They have some excellent young players, the likes of Brian Hayes, who got a goal at the weekend against Newcestown. Mark Cronin's in excellent form. So is Ross Corkery. So it was always going to be an uphill task for Newcestown. But look, they've stayed up in the grade. I think that's a massive achievement for Jimmy O'Sullivan, and definitely for them to take forward staying up in football and hurling in the same season in Premier Senior. I think it's a magnificent achievement, and Newcestown deliver once more. In terms of this game against Nemo, David Buckley going off after 10 minutes, that definitely cost them. He is their scorer-in-chief. Once he went off the field, it was almost like, yeah, it was always going to be Nemo's game after that. But Newcestown can hold their head up high. It's a magnificent achievement to stay up, and they should be very proud of their achievements this year in football and hurling.
Yeah, overall, I guess aside from Ross, of course, it's been quite a positive year for West Cork clubs in Premier Senior. So we'll see how those games go in a couple of weeks' time on the 29th of September. But we'll move on now to Senior A. We'll start there in Group 1. There was a big clash at the top of that group between Carrigaline and Kilnamartyra. It was kind of a winner takes all for who would top that group. Carrigaline pipping Kilnamartyra, they won 115 to 16 points. So it puts Kilnamartyra into a quarter-final against Dawneys, which I think will be a really exciting game. Like two very good teams there. So what do you make of that one?
Yeah, it's a very good result for Carrigaline beating Kilnamartyra. Kind of disappointing that it wasn't enough to reach the quarterfinal. It looked for a while on that day. Kanturk were losing against Fermoy, as far as I know as well. They were drawing as well. And if the results stayed that way, it would have been Carrigaline into the semi-finals. So I'm sure they would have been disappointed not to get the automatic semi-final slot. But to be fair, it's a very good performance against a decent Kilnamartyra team. Went all the way to the order of the final, obviously, at intermediate level last season. And Brian O'Driscoll from Type McCorriggs is definitely making a difference for Carrigaline. He's definitely carrying them head and shoulders in this grade as well. The two brothers, the Coakley brothers, and Brian and Niall, are in excellent form as well for Carrigaline. So it's an excellent result for them, and they'd want to go up at the first time of asking after being relegated from Premier Senior last year. For Kilnamartyra, maybe it's a bit of a wake-up call. Like, the first two games, they won them quite easily enough against Kishame and Bela and Gearig, but this game was another level, and it just showed that Kilnamartyra kind of have a bit to go to get up to the top of Senior A. As you said, the Dawneys game is going to be a massive game in the quarterfinal, and I'd imagine it'll be a big crowd on Friday week as well. Like, when you think about it, it's in Macroom, the Castle Grounds in Macroom, a nice open venue there as well. A great place to go for a game. So I think there'll be a lot of people going to that game, and it will be nearly a sellout, in my opinion. It looks like to tie the round in the quarterfinals, and yeah, really looking forward to that. But and Carrigaline themselves are playing Bishopstown in the quarterfinals. You have to fancy Carrigaline. Looking at Bishopstown's results at the weekend, they got beat kind of comprehensively in the Senior A grade in the final round game. So, if Carrigaline make a semi-final, it's going to be a massive achievement for them. But Kilnamartyra still have a lot to learn, and it's going to be a big game against Dawneys in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, moving on to Dawneys, then I suppose they played O'Donovan Rossa at the weekend, won 216 to 110. And that was another kind of winner takes all game. The winner of that was going to head into the quarterfinal. Dawneys took it, and they played really well last year as well. They're a very good attacking team, and I presume they'll be delighted with that result at the weekend.
We're absolutely delighted. Yeah, I was chatting to Declan O'Dwyer for this week's Sutton Star. I was at the game as well, and he was just thrilled just to get into the quarterfinals, get out of the group, because he was saying that this grade in Senior A is going to be a very, very tough grade, whether it's this season or any other season. And yeah, Donnies did find it tough. Obviously, the first round losing to Cantork, they had to rebound. They have to be fair to them. A brilliant win over Fermoy, and this win over Skib. To be honest, it was comfortable enough. I know Skip got that goal from Kevin Davis in the second half to make it a bit interesting, but Donnies, they definitely had this game by the grass. There was a few wides, there was a few nervy moments in the second half from a Donnies point of view, but to be fair to them, they stood up. Mark Buckley took two exceptional points in the second half. The first one was a boomer from near the 45, and the second one, he intercepted the Skip kick out himself, and then at the end of the move, he converted as well. Brilliant point by him. And for context as well, he's just coming back from America, a summer over in America, and in his first game back for Donnies, he kicks 4 points. That's an exceptional performance, to be fair to Mark Buckley for that. And Aaron Malik scoring a late goal in that game to clinch it against Skib in that West Cork derby. And as well as that, Aaron Malik's only had 4 minutes on the pitch because of a hamstring problem, and he definitely made the most of his time on the pitch, scoring that goal. It was a magnificent goal right into the heart of the Skip defence, and a brilliant finish into the bottom corner. So yeah, very good win for Donnies. They're into the quarterfinal, as we mentioned before, against Kilnamatra. It's going to be an exciting game, no doubt about that. And yeah, definitely looking forward to that. As for Skib, look, Gino Donovan's side, they've had a difficult enough year when you look at the injuries that they had. They had a good win over Fermoy, and that probably, you know, took the pressure off the Skip players in a way. Like, they weren't going to go down anyway after that win over Fermoy, scoring the point in the last minute in that one. Cantork was a bit of a beating to take. They had Paddy Crowley injured in that game. That was a massive loss. And then the loss against Donnies, which was comprehensive enough, but like, they've had a lot of injuries this year. Donald Condit was out for the whole season. Paddy Crowley went off injured as well. There was a few late injuries as well. I think Rory Byrne went off injured. There was 2 injuries late on as well. They had to make a lot of subs, a lot of players being used and things like that as well. It was a difficult season, but I'm sure Gino Donovan will have to just regroup for next season. It's disappointing what has happened to them, because like, we all love O'Donovan Rossa to do well, obviously, being from West Cork, but it just wasn't to be this year. Like, 2 comprehensive enough defeats to take, and they'll have to go again next season.
Yeah, like you say, that win against Fermoy will have saved them essentially. So that's good for them, that they'll be in Senior A again next year. But we'll move on now to Premier Intermediate, where there are plenty of West Cork clubs. Heartbreak for some, but we'll start with one of those heartbreaks. Castletown Bear, they played Rockchapel at the weekend. They needed a win. They're both in the same group. They needed a win to get out of the group due to their points difference, but could only manage a 10-point draw. However, the fact they drew the game is in and of itself an achievement. They were 6 points down at one stage, so to come back and draw that game, while they'll be disappointed not to win, is a relatively good result for them.
Yeah, to be fair, like, they fought like demons towards the end of the game, if it was Castletown Bear, but it just wasn't enough in the end. To get 3 points in the group, that would normally get you out of the group. For context, Clonakilty got 3 points in Premier Senior and progressed out of the group. Castletown Bear got 3 points in Premier Intermediate and don't. It's just the luck of the draw. And you look at Rockchapel, they are a tough team, a Duhallow team. Obviously, Kilshannig are a very tough team in this group, got 6 points on the board, 100% record, and they are a very good side. But Fintan Fenner deserves a lot of credit in this game. Got half of Castletown Bear scores of this one, 5 from frees, and he is definitely an exciting player to look out for. But just Rockchapel, they had enough done early on in the game. 9 points to 3 up, as you said, early enough in the game, and they just held on to the lead and knew what to do. And that was the essential difference between the two sides in this game. And yeah, it's just unfortunate for Castletown Bear that they didn't do it in the end. But again, like Skib and like Newcestown in Premier Senior as well, it's a positive that they are staying up. There's no relegation playoff. They are staying up for next year. They just have to build on even further for next season. They got to a semi-final last year, so they aren't too far away in the Premier Intermediate grade. So yeah, there is stuff to build on for Castletown Bear with a young, enthusiastic squad there. But I'm sure they'll be disappointed after the loss against Rockchapel, but there are the positives after having a decent enough season with only 1 loss on the board and 3 points. It is still a decent campaign, but ultimately close but no cigar.
Yeah, it's probably just one of those. The way it ended up is why it's kind of heartbreaking for them. But when you kind of in a couple of weeks' time, they'll probably look back and be relatively happy with this year. But one team that will be happy enough going into the next round of games is Bantry, who while they did lose at the weekend to Navalbon, they lost 1-9 to 1-7. So they missed out on top spot. It does mean that they're into a quarter final against Eve Leary on Saturday, 28th of September. That's at 5:30. A little bit of a surprise loss here, Matthew.
Yeah, to be fair, like I would have said, the three favourites coming into the Premier Intermediate would have been Kilshannig, Bantry Blues, and Eve Lera, without doubt, in my opinion. And the fact that three of these sides are now on the same side of the draw in the quarterfinals and semi-finals, we're going to have a shock, but from here until the final, I'm sure, in the Premier Intermediate, because you look at the other side of the draw, you have Ahabolog there, you have Naomh Vaughan, and to be fair, like Ahabolog deserved their victory over Eve Lera at the weekend, and so did Naomh Vaughan against Bantry. So it's like you have to give those two sides credit for coming out and getting those wins, in fairness to them. A bit of a loss for Bantry and Eve Lera in general. Like Eve Lera had Chris O'Jones. He scored 6 points in this one. I'm aware, against Ahabolog, but he went off injured late on. And we'd hope for Eve Lera's point of view, and the sake of a good game against Bantry in 2 weeks' time, that Chris Og is fit, because he's one of the best forwards in Cork, and it is going to be a loss for Eve Lera if the injury is serious. And from what I was hearing in the Bantry Naomh Vaughan game, Rory Dean didn't play any part whatsoever in that game, and he didn't. I'm just double checking here. So like if those two are going to be missing for the quarterfinal meeting, that's going to be bad maybe for the entertainment value between Bantry and Eve Lera, because we just want the best players on the pitch. And to be fair, just from a Bantry point of view, if they are going to miss Rory Dean for that Eve Lera game, that's a massive loss, because he is their leader. He has been over the last few seasons. And yeah, that's going to be a cracker of a game, that quarterfinal in Cahill in 2 weeks' time at 5:30 on Saturday 28th, I think it is. So, like, that's going to be a massive game, Bantry Eve Lera, because most people, including myself, probably would have said that these two sides would have ended up in the final against each other. It's the quarterfinal, looking at the draw here. So it's going to be a massive game, no doubt about that as well. And to add more kind of stress for Eve Lera, Muskerry, the divisional side, are playing in the Premier Senior Championship in the same weekend. So you'd have possibly, if Chris O'Jones or Ian Jones are fit enough to play for Eve Lera and Muskerry, they'll be playing on the Saturday for Eve Lera and then the Sunday for Muskerry in the Premier Senior Championship. So it's going to be a hectic weekend for those players, I'm sure. And for Bantry, quick mention for Otter Coakley. He scored 1-5 against Naomh Vaughan, and he's now the joint top scorer overall in the Premier Intermediate Championship and the top scorer outright from play as well. So he's having a magnificent campaign. And whatever we say about Rory Dean be the colossal figure for Bantry, Otter Coakley deserves a lot of credit, and he has done the bulk of the scoring for Bantry over the last few seasons, and deserves a lot of credit for that. But I'm telling you, the Premier Intermediate is going to be very, very interesting in the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's probably, from my point of view, maybe one of the most competitive of all. Like when you look at the teams, like you feel like anyone can almost beat anyone. Especially going into this stage, like you say. That game is one to look forward to. It's on Saturday, 28th of September at 5:30. On now to I want to talk about Bandon next, because Bandon are an interesting one. They didn't win a game this year, finished on 0 points, but by virtue of points difference have survived, with Macroom and Island Rovers, who we'll talk about in a moment, heading into a relegation playoff. But Bandon scored 2-10 at the weekend against Nemo, and like that 2-10 has basically saved them, because the points difference, they ended up on -12, while Macroom, who had a big enough loss themselves to Kilshannig, ended up on -15. So essentially, one of those Bandon goals is the reason that they're still in Premier Intermediate. And after a poor season from them, that's a real positive to take out of it, isn't it?
It is definitely a positive for Bandon in hurling and football, that in the last week they avoided relegation playoffs in both, and they are staying in the grade after having a difficult season by their standards. Bandon, I'm sure they'd want a better season in future seasons, but this season wasn't up to scratch whatsoever. It was kind of a weird one, this game between Bandon and Nemo Rangers, because what I was hearing was they knew at the end of the game, both sides, that they did enough to achieve what they wanted to achieve. Bandon knew what they had to do to stay up, and they've achieved that. Nemo Rangers were winning the game, but they couldn't win by any more because it wouldn't have made a difference because they couldn't get into the knockout stages. So both sides were kind of, from what I was hearing anyway, were playing keep ball in the last few minutes. It was kind of that weird enough scenario, but to be fair to both sides, like Nemo didn't make it out in the end, but they got the win. It's a good season for their standards. But for Bandon, look, it's a difficult season, but they got over the line. They got out of the relegation playoff, and I'm sure we'll talk about Ireland in a bit. But Ireland and Macroom are unfortunately in the relegation playoff from their point of view. But it's a good season in that kind of light for Bandits to avoid a relegation playoff. They want better next year, I'm sure. But look, they stayed up this season. That was the main aim for them, and they have to push on again next season. And before we leave Bandit as well, Mikey Callan, one of the top scorers in the Premier Intermediate Championship as well, deserves a lot of credit. Definitely carried Bandon on his back in this game against Nemo Rangers when they needed him most. Obviously, excellent hurler from his days with Cork, we all know that, but he's definitely a decent footballer for his club as well and deserves a lot of credit for contributing to Bandon staying up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess they'll take the positives where they can get them after a season like this. There aren't really any positives, unfortunately, for Island Rovers. We've covered them a lot in the Southern Star and spoken a lot on the podcast about their lack of players and their struggles this season. They lost at the weekend to Ahada 5-11 to 110. So another kind of really tough defeat for them, a difficult one to take, I'm sure. And now they're heading into a relegation playoff against Macroom on the 28th of September at 4 o'clock. So what will Island Rovers be thinking going into this game?
When will the rut end? I think is probably the term to use, Dylan. Like it's a hard one to stomach for the Island Rover players, I imagine. Like I was at one of their games at the start of the year against Eve Lair, and just the confidence as that game went on, they got hammered by Eve Lair on that one, and the confidence started to drain out of them minute by minute by minute, and it was just, it's hard to watch from just the West Cork person's point of view, seeing Island Rovers like this, because they were in the quarterfinal of the Premier Senior Championship in 2019. 2020, they stayed up, but still had a poor enough season. In 2021, they came up against St. Finbarrs in Bandascarty and only lost by 3 points. 3 years later, and they could go down to the 4th-tier Cork football. It's a hard one to take. Obviously, it is a small community. They are rallying around together, I'm sure. It is a tough period for them. They have to lift themselves out of this, and they find something in them to get a win out of the Macroom game, who haven't had a good season themselves. They've lost 3 games as well under the management of Aidan O'Mahony. So, like, both sides are kind of going in as even keels, if you think about it, because both sides have lost all 3 games. It's going to be a difficult game for either of them, but Ireland, it's going to be crucial for them to stay up at the same time, because if they were to get another relegation, they got relegated for Premier Senior in 21, Senior A in 23. If they get his 3rd relegation in 4 years, like, you'd question, to be honest, Dylan, how are they going to respond in Intermediate A? Like, Intermediate A is going to be a tough division next season, as we'll talk about the teams later on that might not get promoted. So yeah, Ireland, it's going to be it's a crucial game for them to pull their socks up against Macroom in a few weeks' time, and just hopefully from their point of view that they do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I have my own stat here for you, Matthew, that the Islands starting 15 against Ahada featured just 8 of the side that started the Premier Senior relegation playoff against Carrigaline in 2021. So that just kind of goes to illustrate the player drain that they've experienced over the last couple of years, and the tough position that they're in there. So, like we said, that game is on Saturday, 28th of September. We'll be hoping, from Ireland's point of view, that they can win. Macroom obviously will have a lot to say about that as well. So it could be a very interesting game in a couple of weeks' time. You mentioned Intermediate A a moment ago. Adrigole have topped their group. They leapfrogged Gabriel Rangers in the last round, beating them last time out to go directly into the semi-final. You were at this game as well. What did you make of it?
Magnificent win for Adrigal, it really was. And on the Southern Star actually last week, it was interesting reading that yes, Adrigal needed only a point to progress, and there were certain permutations, but Tim O'Sullivan was adamant that he wanted to win this game. And going into Cahill on Saturday, you could just see the Adrigal warm up. You could see the expressions on the bench as well. They wanted to win this game. They no doubt wanted to do it, and they were just winning their team over the line. To be honest, Dylan, it wasn't necessarily a brilliant game of football, but in terms of commitment for the club, Adrigal showed this in spades. It was an exceptional display in that kind of standpoint. They were only 5 points to 1-1 up with the wins in the first half, which I'm sure Tim O'Sullivan would have been unhappy about going to the dressing room. But they definitely produced a brilliant performance in the second half to get over the line. Kevin Goggins scoring the last 2 points in this one to get them over the line in a magnificent game from their point of view. And you could, like, when the final whistle went, the euphoria off the bench from the Adrigal players, it just shows you what it meant to them to get into the knockout stage, to get into the semi-finals. And even what Tim was saying to me afterwards, they lost the semi-final after extra time to Mitchelstown last year, and they were determined to get to a semi-final again. Yes, we talked about Castlehaven might not, in Premier Senior, getting to a semi-final, might not have the oomph that a quarter-finalist would have going to a semi-final because of not having the extra game. But Adrigal didn't care about that. They wanted to go straight into a semi-final. They wanted to be part of the favourites to win the Intermediate A crown. And it's a magnificent achievement for them, in fairness. And it was tough conditions at Cake. It was wet, it was windy. But Adrigal got over the line, and they did it in spades in the end. What a result for them. 10 points to 1-5. For Gabriel's, look, they were disappointed with the results, I'm sure, but they will have to dust themselves down going into the quarterfinal. There is the positive. They were already progressed before the game even began, so it was just about seedings in this one for them. But it is going to be a difficult game for them in 2 weeks' time against Mitchelstown in Parky Rin on Sunday 29th. So, yeah, it's going to be a difficult game for them with Mitchelstown having the likes of Carl Manny in top form, Mark Keane back from AFL as well. It's going to be a difficult assignment for Gabriel Rangers, but I'm sure they'll be up for it in a few weeks' time. But what a result for Adrigal. And they're the only Bearer club remaining as well, so they're flying the flag for that division.
Yeah, really positive for Adrigal, obviously. And I presume the weather probably played a bit of a part in the game at the weekend as well. So any game you win in tough weather conditions is a great win for any team. So that's great for them. On to Premier Junior now, and St. James's, unfortunately, we are looking at a relegation playoff. They lost at the weekend to Cove 210 to 1-6, but they're manager is backing them to bounce back in the next game out.
Yeah, exactly. It was a difficult season for St. James's. There's no masking over that. But as Sean Holland said in this podcast, I think it was a few weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, that this was probably the most difficult group that St. James's could be put into, with the likes of Canavie in there, Kilmurray, and of course Cove, who they eventually succumbed to on Friday night. Like, it was a difficult evening for St. James's. They are definitely in a relegation playoff now, and they'll have to dust themselves down for that. It looks as if now they're playing St. Nick's, but that could alter by unprecedented event. I'll just say, if Glenville lose by 29 points in their refixed game against Kinsale, then they'll face Glenville in the relegation playoff. But let's be honest, I don't think that's going to happen. So let's just say St. James's will be playing St. Nick's in the relegation playoff. But look, it's going to be a difficult game for St. James's, whoever they play. And yeah, you'll just hope from their point of view that they have the resilience to bounce back and get the win they need to stay up in Premier Junior.
Erhin as well, making it out of Group 3. Budovan ran away with that group, but good stuff from Erhin to make it into the quarterfinals.
Yeah, massive achievement for Oran, and yeah, they're the second Bearer side actually to make it out of the group as well, other than Adrigal as well. So 2 Bearer sides in the knockout round is great for the division that has suffered so much in the last few seasons. But Oran, like, they faced a side, Buttevant, that were scoring in each and every way in the Premier Junior Championship. Ridiculous scorelines they were putting up. But Oran showed a lot of heart in this game. They were behind for most of it, but they still managed to lose by just a point to Buttevant, and that made all the difference again in the knockout stages. It's a magnificent achievement for Oran, and they deserve a lot of credit for getting into the knockout rounds. And it's great to see Oran in the knockout round. Great for the Bear community, I'm sure. And yeah, brilliant results.
Yeah, absolutely. We're running out of time on the podcast this week. We've been chatting away so much that we don't have a huge amount of time to cover the Carberry Junior A Championship. But the headline there, Matthew, is that Barry Rowe are out after losing to St. Mary's. So their title defence is ended. St. Mary's winning 111 to 13 points there.
Yeah, quite the shock by many people's standards. Ryan Scanlon scoring a last-minute point for St. Mary's to win this game in Artfield. It's a magnificent achievement for St. Mary's. But the thing is, St. Mary's lost by a last-minute goal in round 2 to Carbery Rangers. So maybe the club deserve a bit of luck in the last few minutes to get out of this group stage. And fair play to St. Mary's. Look, it's disappointing for Barry Rowe, I'm sure, but I'm sure they'll bounce back. They have some brilliant players in that panel. I'm sure they'll bounce back in the next few seasons. But this year they won't be in the knockout stages. And another side that won't be there as well, Type McCormick's. After losing Brian O'Driscoll to Carrigaline, they lost to Randallogue by a last-minute point from Kieran Murray for Randallogue, a last-minute freeze from the goalkeeper. So a magnificent achievement for Randallogue to reach the knockout stage in both football and hurling junior A. A magnificent achievement for them. And the quarter-final lineup looks very, very tasty. Bandascarty against St. Mary's looks very good. Kilmackabee against Randallogue. Kilmackabee will be the favourites, I'm sure. Argadine Rangers against Castlehaven's B team, and Carbery Rangers second team against Dermot O'Mahoonas in the quarter-final. Another side that have hurlers and footballers in the knockout stages in junior A. A magnificent achievement for Dermot O'Mahoonas as well. So yeah, looking forward to the rest of the junior A championship. It's a few surprises so far, and don't be shocked if we get a surprise champion too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really, really interesting championship so far. We'll be covering that in a lot more detail as it hots up as well. But if you do want to read a lot more about the Carberry Junior A Championship, we have match reports in this week's Southern Star. So there are 20 pages of GA match reports in this week's Southern Star. We've spoken a lot about all of the county action, but as well we have all the Carberry stuff as well. So match reports from games around West Cork there. If you want some more detail, pick up a copy of this week's Southern Star. That'll be in shops and online from Thursday morning. If you want to subscribe, if you're a bit further afield or you can't make it to the shops, you can subscribe via southernstar.ie/subscribe. Send your details there and you'll get exact replica of the newspaper for less than €2 per week. And we actually have a special offer on at the moment. If you're signing up for a monthly subscription, head to southernstar.ie/offers. You can get 50% off your first 3 months. So it'll just be €4 per month for you. A good time to sign up as the football and hurling action really heats up over the next couple of months across the county. As always, thanks for listening to the Star Sport Podcast, and thanks again to our sponsors at Access Credit Union. If you've enjoyed this, please remember to rate, review and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back again next week. Thanks for listening.